What is up, guys? Today, I've got Josiah back on the channel. We wanted to talk about some Digibyte stuff with you. I know many people have been asking me when the next Digibyte video is coming. Well, that is today. So let's start off with a pretty straightforward topic. What are the coolest things right now? Let's just give you two that you're working on with Digibyte right now. Like, what are the two things you're most stoked about?
I'm only allowed two? Come on. Okay,
Yeah, we'll get into more, but two for now.
So the coolest two things that we're working on. So obviously digiassets is something we're super excited about. I've actually been working on a side project myself as well to allow people to create digiassets and to bulk send those assets out to people, because no one wants to have to go through one at a time and go copy out of like Twitter, paste it, copy out of YouTube comments, paste it, and send it, especially in mobile. It's going to take you forever. So the idea is I'm going to have a website that speeds that process up. You can just upload a spreadsheet to it as a CSV file, and away you go. You can bulk send to 1,000 people with a quick upload, and away you go.
Sweet.
Also in that same kind of vein, we are looking at doing a way that you can easily pay dividends out to people. It's probably one of the most common requests that we've actually had so far is, this is great, I'm building an asset. How do I pay people though? I want to reward my token holders. I want to send them some Digibyte and reward them, basically. Maybe it's for a business, or maybe it's for just because you're a nice person. Maybe it's, for example, mining rewards and you're holding a mining farm token. All of those things, ways that we can speed that up and make that super simple. And I guess the other main thing that we've got is it's coming for iOS. So we've had it on Android, and we're working through, we're refining things, but it's also coming to iOS. We really want to play the whole mobile-centric, I suppose, because assets are great, but no one's going to rock on up to a stadium with their ticket on a laptop and go, okay,
hey, here it is.
Just let me unlock my computer, hang on. Wait, Windows Hello's not working. Let me just tilt them. It's, you know.
Yeah. Do you have a hotspot that I can use so I can access this?
Let me quickly fire up Tether. I'm gonna, So mobile's obviously really key for people to be able to use this kind of thing all the time in their daily lives, which is obviously what we want. We want people to be able to use this and remove a lot of that friction. So this is probably the best way to sum up where we're heading, is breaking down those walls and breaking down those barriers.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I'm really excited about digiassets, and for anyone who hasn't seen the video that we did about digiassets itself, there's one, I'll link it up in that top corner there for you to check out. But Josiah showed me how to set up digiassets, and we did like a little exchange between each other, like on camera live with no camera magic to edit out mistakes. So you get the whole raw experience of what digiassets was on the browser. But you guys have made so many updates and things to the experience and how it is to make a new asset, how to send it. And the move to mobile is really powerful, because now, like you said, you're not tethered to a computer. You can be on the go with those assets. So it opens up a bunch of different use cases for those.
Well, obviously people don't want to have to, like, let's say you're a business and you're starting up. You don't want to have to sit down and go, right, I'm going to go and sync the last 6 years worth of our blockchain. And then after I've synced that, I'm going to install this additional application on top that's also then going to go and pull out all of the digi-asset metadata and things like that. You just want to rock it up and go, I'm making an asset, here's my name, here's my money, and give it to these people. That's the simplicity we've got to get to, especially if we're going to do things like we want to encourage YouTubers to use it as a token that they can use for rewards, good community behavior, and like we talked about in the Digibyte and Friends, to be able to say to somebody, here, you've done really good, you've made some awesome comments, you helped out Bob over there with that great question that he had. As a result, you've accumulated 50 of these tokens, and I'm going to send you a t-shirt, and thank you for that. So it's got to be simple for everybody to use, not just the people like yourself who live and breathe it and can write the code, I suppose.
Definitely. Yeah, it has to be there has to be mass appeal, and as much as people don't like it now, as a developer especially, it has to look good. If it doesn't look good and it doesn't make sense, it's not going to work. Like, if people don't use it, it doesn't matter how valuable it actually is and how cool it is. And so that it's the smart way of going about it these days.
Yeah, it's actually really funny because we've had a lot of feedback on our application. So our mobile apps are based off of Bread Wallet. And so for those who aren't familiar with it, Bread Wallet is it's not really the de facto, but it's probably one of the more popular ones for Bitcoin. They started off back in the day, they were given a grant of like $7-8 million or something along those lines, and they built it up. But it's very boxy, very early 2000s kind of look for a computer application and squished into mobile. And so what we did was we went along and we have tweaked it, and we actually got a UI specialist. We went through and we got submissions from the community on how would you like it to look. Yeah, and so we ran a contest. The community came along and they voted, and there was like 16 of them, and we did the whole like knockout until we have a final couple of them, and we've now actually made it look really pretty, because you're right, that kind of thing is actually super important for users. It's slight diversion. There was actually a comment a while back about doing a pink theme for the wallet, because especially like, for example, a lot of women don't carry around wallets, they'll carry around a purse, and oftentimes it's going to be something that looks pretty. My wife's one is covered with Disney stickers. I know, for example, that my sister likes hers to just be like a nice bright pink that sparkles everywhere. And I was talking with my wife, and she said, I want this to be pretty. Like, it looks pretty in this dark theme, don't get me wrong, it's very nice, it's very slick. But she said if you could do that in pink, she was like, hell yeah, I would rock a Digibyte purse instead of a Digibyte wallet, you know? So
yeah, totally.
Users care about that kind of thing.
Yeah, and customizable features, you know? I mean, I'm a big user of Brave browser, right?
Yep.
And one of the things that people always say is, like, I really love the browser, it's cool, it has tracker blocking, ad blocking, whatever. What I really want is all the customization features that I get in something like Vivaldi, right?
Yep.
So they've made it clear that while all the other features that it offers are great, the customization is something they can't live without. So some of these blockchain apps and these dApps and peripheral things, wallets, they have to encompass that as well, because people care. And we don't want any other barriers to adoption that don't include, does it scale? Is it understood by everyone, et cetera? Like, we have enough issues to work through.
Let's not make this harder for ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, so in terms of Digibyte, I think that really brings up the next point. You guys often are really active on social media about how efficient the blockchain is. Like, you guys have what is very much a scalable UTXO blockchain that has now consensus that is pretty well crafted and well tailored to some of the modern problems that blockchains have, right?
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about Odacrypt and some of the lessons learned from all of that as you guys approached the ASIC problem.
Okay, Odacrypt was fascinating to watch consensus unfold, specifically because what we're doing is we've got our 5 algorithms. And so really quickly, for anybody who's not familiar with them, these 5 algorithms, they all compete all consistently for every single block. So they're all going like head to head at all times. Whereas with other things, say for example with X16R, what happens is everybody decides we're going to do a Blue Midnight Wish block. And then everybody then decides we're now going to do a skiing block. And everybody is all mining that same sub-algorithm of X16R. So it's a little bit different because there is still just one overall algorithm. So with our multi-algorithm, they are all fighting for every single block, all vying for that position. Now, when it comes to replacing one of them, obviously there are people who have made mining investments whose hardware is no longer going to be valid because you've gone and bought a Myriad Grostal ASIC. So it was really, really fascinating to see the adoption happening on a per algorithm basis. I ran a script like every day, every few hours even, to watch this kind of thing that would pull out the last day's worth of blocks, and we would see, right, SHA-256, they're keen for this, they're early adopters, they're all signaling the update. Scrypt, again, similar thing, like right up there at like 90 to 95% adoption for signaling. Quibbit was dragging their heels, and as was the Myriad Grostel algorithm. And so it was interesting to see as they slowly got closer to a consensus, eventually the Myriad Grostel people kind of, I suppose, I'm presuming this, obviously I don't know who they are, and that's kind of the hard part, is we genuinely didn't know who was doing this mining, and we couldn't find them. You can't track them down. It's a permissionless
Can't talk
blockchain.
to them. Yeah.
And we see all of a sudden just this jump as, like, I'm presuming it was an additional pool based on their Coinbase string. This pool basically just decides, you know what, we're actually going to support this. We're going to support it for the betterment of the network. We're going to replace the algorithm. And now all of a sudden we had over our 70% requirement to get consensus for that. So it was fascinating to see that kind of thing all unfolding. Now, going forward, as we grow, that's obviously going to be more and more difficult as you get more and more people on board that you don't know who they are. Like, there's no register where I have to come to you and say, hey Forrest, I'd like to come and start mining Digibyte. You'll tell me you were like, so that's great, Josiah, but what does that have to do with me? Like, so what?
Yeah. You can do that if you want.
Well, thanks for giving me your permission, man. I appreciate that. But it's funny because we genuinely don't know who is mining. And so no doubt as we go forward in future, we're looking at potentially swapping out another one for, say, for example, Prog POW, Random X, something along those lines. We're investigating them at the moment. Let's say 6 years, 10 years down the line, that's going to probably be even more difficult to make those consensus changes as we have a broader network and a broader spectrum of players participating, especially ones that you can't just send out an email to and go, hey guys, please update.
Yeah. And that's the challenge of running a protocol versus running an app, right?
Yeah.
With an app, and a lot of people talk about this, but with an app, the app developer can say to you, hey, if you're not running version X.X or later, you're not hitting my servers and you're not going to get your data update, right? Or you're done. With a blockchain, a true protocol that doesn't have figureheads truly that can really control things or influence a bunch of people, you've got to, the feature's got to speak for itself, and you have to think about all of the individuals that will have to also comply with that, or else you have a fork, and then that's what happens. You don't have that type of control.
Well, how do you especially notify somebody? So, for example, it's a very popular thing in the Bitcoin realm to run a Raspberry Pi, a headless Raspberry Pi. There's no app that's sitting on your screen that will pop up a notification and go, hey, there's an update. And even if that's the case, who's to say that you want that update? Who's to say that you're going to support that, or that that update is not in line with your best interest because maybe the developer who happened to be pushing that update out was malicious? There's a whole lot of things to have to think about.
The whole mess of things,
Whereas with an app, I guess you get to be like, you're the alpha and you're the omega, and you're going to say everybody needs to update. This version 1.6 is no longer supported. You must be on version 1.7, and 1.7 no longer supports Android Gingerbread or something from a decade ago. You know, it's a tough one.
There's only so much you can do, and so I think from Digibyte's perspective, what is the plan of attack? Let's just say from now until mid 2020, because I am of the opinion that in that first 2 quarters of 2020, we're going to see a lot of these projects that have been heads down through the 2018 winter that people talked about, and then a lot of 2019. Like really building and trying to realize their vision, knowing that like we can't focus on token price, we can't focus on negativity, whatever. Let's just push forward and try and put the best product out we can. I think we're going to start to see, for better or for worse, a lot of these protocols coming out with their latest and greatest and saying these are our solutions. Now make your judgment. So where does Digibyte fall in that from a strategy perspective? Granted that you guys already have a lot out there in terms of your protocol and a lot of the visions already established.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a lot of it's going to come down to education, and it's the real, I mean, it's kind of a cop-out of an answer, just like teaching people about why we're already awesome. We don't specifically need to go and be continuously doing all this other stuff to put us into a viable spot. For us to
Right.
already be able to say we can achieve this kind of throughput, this is our block size, block timings, all of that sort of jazz, that's great. We now just need to teach people about it and why it's better to go for something that is tried and true rather than, hey, this looks really fancy. I can see all these flashing lights over here, and it's appealing. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
this is potentially something over here. Say, for example, we are now using 13 stakers and things like that.
Yep.
That is something that's not specifically tried and battle hardened and battle tested and proven, and we've already been around. I think a lot of this is actually going to come down to the fact we've been around now for coming up 6 years. We have that experience as a blockchain and as people that are using it and supporting it, because obviously it's difficult for us to say, well, you know, Joe has experience with this over here, but everybody involved with the project has experience with replacing an algorithm as and when we need to. So that kind of that experience and that battle-hardened experience really is, I think, is going to come down to a lot, and we just simply need to now teach people about why that experience matters and why that history matters. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, if you go on Twitter, you'll see there are a lot of people that are very passionate about Digibyte. There are a lot of people who use it and say, like, you know, I saw a post yesterday, and this is, if you're watching this later on, this is in September of 2019. They sent a Digibyte transaction, a pretty sizable one at that. And within, I think it was within the same minute, but within, I think, the same like second, they saw a confirmation.
Yep.
And so it's that type of instantaneous speed. You know, some applications, they might not need to make that as a decision. Like, we need that type of speed. We need that throughput. We need confirmation times that are X. But for day-to-day transactions, the physical act of me swiping my card or handing someone cash or handing someone something, it's got to be at least close to that. And I think that Digibyte's main claim to fame or niche in that market is they have that sort of instant feedback.
Yeah.
Or that the network does.
So you can see it on the chain and actually hitting the chain. I think that might have actually been the one of the digifacts that we've been working on. There was a transaction. It was actually an exchange, and they took 200 inputs, and I think it was around about $6 million US at the time, and they were able to send that, and it was a tenth of a cent it cost them. So, like, that's... You're right, though, about being able to see that, like, compared to paying with your credit card, for example, because I did a short video about this when I was at McDonald's, and I went there, and it was the whole, you hit the self-order button at the kiosk, paying with your credit card. The whole process, the video, I think, is like 18 seconds long. And I basically do a little voiceover, and I say that if this is what we're going to compete with, having a 10-minute confirmation time is just not going to cut it. Having a 5-minute confirmation time is not going to cut it. Having a 1-minute confirmation time is, again, probably also not going to cut it. 15 seconds is a pretty happy medium. We think we could still potentially be a little bit faster. There's theory about it could possibly be 12 seconds in terms of the time taken for data to travel around the world and be verified and validated. But 15 seconds is comparable to you walking up at McDonald's, swiping your credit card, and you get that feedback on the screen, and you can see it says accepted, like confirmed, or declined if you happen to be a bit broke that month, but you know.
There you go. Yeah, so I mean, I'm totally in agreement with you. I think that there's, you know, this was on Twitter, but I posted about it. It's like there's so many different use cases, and there are so many different needs for different things that you do in your life, right? No one uses the same method of payment for every single thing.
Yeah.
No one really has, you know, maybe there are people that just have all their just cash in their mattress or in their house, and they don't use any banks. But I would say most people have a bank or multiple.
Probably, yeah.
Right. So there's an exception to the rule. So I'm trying to be cognizant of those people who are like, hey, by the way, no, I don't have a bank in the comments. But
there's always that one guy in the comments who sings out and is like, but what about me?
Yeah,
You're
seriously.
the exception to the rule, buddy.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are those people out there, and you're not there. There's never one solution that covers all of your use cases, right?
Yeah.
Cash in some cases just isn't viable. But then there are other places, like the other day, I was on vacation. I was in Toronto. I went to go buy gelato, right? And I had a US debit card and then one US credit card and no cash because I hate carrying cash. I have like the tiniest thin wallet because I hate having stuff in my pockets. So I'm trying to pay and I went through the normal, okay, so they're like cash only. I'm like, can you accept debit? They're like, yeah, we can do debit. So I'm like, okay, my card says debit on it and it's not going through. So it's not working. And I know I have the money to cover this. So everyone's saying I'm poor, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe I am, but that was not the reason why this didn't.
The life of a poor YouTuber, right?
You know, right? And ultimately I said, hey, okay, fine. Can I pay you in crypto? I'll pay you right now in crypto. We'll call it a day and you can put cash in the till on my behalf. Of course, they're like, no, this teenager's like, who is this weird dude with a beard telling me he's going to pay me in some weird digital money? Ultimately, then I did not have like the tool that I used to pay for most things did not work. So now I need to have another option. I think it's the same thing with crypto. There are going to be a lot of different protocols that end up succeeding that are going to be used for different things. Digibyte could very well be one of the de facto standards for payment railing for day-to-day transactions because it's already fast and it has proof of work verification quickly, right? Which we all know and love. Proof of work is important. You need that cost structure there for security purposes. Yep. So, people who are going around saying, hey, this is the protocol that's going to do everything. That's a terrible approach. Terrible. It's just like the Cheesecake Factory, right? Where you go and it's like, do you have Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah.
Like that restaurant? Yeah. It's like they have a menu that looks like a book.
And you open it, there's like 50 pages.
Yeah, you're like, what? They do everything terribly, and when they'd be better off taking a one-page menu and just doing everything really well.
Yep.
It's the same sort of thing. Like niche down and pick your spot.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. We're different. So I feel like we're going to see a lot of refinement in terms of the number of projects that are out there. We do not need a blockchain for everything. We don't need four freaking supply chain management blockchains that all basically do the same thing, but this one's over here doing it for documents, whereas this one's over here doing it for produce. We don't need that many. Just use Digibyte if you have to. Use it. I don't really care. But we don't need something just for that. But at the same time, I'm also a huge advocate, like you are, of using a tool that will get the job done. And so with that said, we have like over 24 different wallets. I have a lot of them on my cell phone. I keep a little bit of Digibyte in a bunch of them just to try them out and things like that. But I'm also well aware that for the most part, I simply stick with the main Digibyte app. And I'm also pretty partial to Koinomi. I like it. I like the team there. I've had a good chat with them and stuff. Other people, though, want something else where you have a built-in shapeshift. And so for them, another tool is probably going to be better, like the Exodus wallet, for example. But I also... I'm aware that these are two contrarian kind of viewpoints, because I don't think that we need a project for everything, but I like that people have choice and they can use whatever works for them. So. Yeah.
But I think ultimately then it means that the people will decide what they like, but there's no purpose in individuals who like one thing over the other being like, hey, by the way, all these other things are scams, right? And don't use them, right? It's like, I really don't get the hype for some of the apps that are out there. Like Snapchat, I think it's the dumbest thing ever. Like I've tried because my girlfriend's like, hey, can you get Snapchat so we can go back and forth with messages, whatever. It just doesn't appeal to me. I think it's stupid, but I'm not going to go around and tell people, hey, Snapchat's a scam and they're scary and you should never have it, because I just don't like it. That's, I just don't find the value in it.
We're looking at you, certain Bitcoin maximalists. You know who you are.
It's tough because, and I'm a big, and I said this on Twitter the other day, I'm a huge believer in Bitcoin and what it represents and the value and all of that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I'm not to the point where just because I like that and because Bitcoin is a great 10-year example of a proof of work verified digital ledger with a fixed supply that's deflationary,
Yep.
that has value. Like, I'm a fan of that. That doesn't mean I don't like Ethereum. That doesn't mean I don't like Digibyte because it's another UTXO with proof of work. Like, it just doesn't work that way for me.
Yep.
Digibyte and Bitcoin are, if you look at it on paper and you look at core specs, like up to the point where it's like, what accounting mechanism does it use and what consensus mechanism derivation does it use, they're very similar. But beyond that,
we're 90% them.
Yeah, it's other than that, it's like that last 10% that makes Digibyte almost incomparable to Bitcoin in terms of what the purpose is, right?
Yep.
So
you're allowed to like vanilla and you're allowed to like chocolate, but if you're going to
Totally.
go and do some stupid things like adding paprika and bacon to it, then we got to kind of draw the line there with your blockchain
Unnecessary.
projects.
Yeah, right on. So it's a very interesting time to be not just alive, but just an interesting time to be in this space.
Yeah.
And see how things develop.
It's going to.
For sure.
It's kind of also like, in some ways, a dangerous time because at the same, like that's why there is so much speculation in this. Because how do you know that your project isn't the ice cream that has added bacon and paprika to it, compared to just being like hokey pokey, right? Like, how do you know that it is still going to be around in half a decade, a decade? It kind of again comes back to that whole, one of the things that Digibyte really has going for it now is that we do have 6 years worth of history, and the project as a whole and those who are involved with it are probably also going to still be here in another 6 years. We're not up and about to disappear. The network's not about to fall over. You can see that this progress has been made. So yeah. I do. I like the idea that everybody can choose between vanilla and chocolate, or maybe mix a little bit of both in there and add some soda if you happen to think that that's your thing. But
That's your jam.
it doesn't mean that chocolate's a scam, or it doesn't mean that vanilla's a bad project.
I agree. Yeah, it's tough, and we go back to it all the time. It's that tribalism that exists. It's a human problem for sure. So it's not like we can say, hey, it's only crypto, because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think this community is still so small relative to what it could be and will be. That
I think
we
actually
see it.
it was Rice Crypto, and he was interviewing Peter McCormack, and he said something really interesting in there. He said, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but more of a Bitcoin centralist. And that really resonated with me as well, because I think, like, I'm big on Bitcoin. Like you say, it's been around for 10 years with the proof of work and things, and the reducing deflationary supply and the likes. But at the same time, it's not going to be one thing, the be all and end all for everybody. And I'm very much aware that I actually prefer this other flavor. I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't even have ice cream. Maybe let's compare this with gelato, right?
Yeah. No, it's you're totally speaking the truth. I think there's also no academic benefit for you to stop on a road that we're just now embarking on and set your sights on one thing and then stop learning, because that's what happens. Is you have, I'm not saying that anyone's contrarian opinion about a project is unfounded and uneducated. I'm saying more so that there are a lot of people who are like, okay, I'm going to subscribe to this notion and this project right here because I believe in the vision. And no matter what happens with that project from day one till the end of time, am I going to shake in my convictions?
Yep.
It's
That's
like
a terrible idea.
Yeah, because then you're just guaranteeing that you as a person, like your viewpoint is staying static.
Yep.
Like you always need to be able to look elsewhere. And if you have criticism, like criticism is cool. That's the thing. I think people get really angry because they're like, oh, well, I can't call out if something's sketchy. Like that's not it. It's the way that people go about it, where they're saying to another community, like you guys are all, you should all be reported to the SEC. I hear that all the time. Like you're scammers, shill scammers. What? Like it doesn't always have to be like that. You know, you can disagree nicely, I guess.
Yeah.
And debate. Like debate is great.
And that's one of the things that we see as well. Obviously, I'm very much also somebody who's been on that firing line of let's not go there. But
I've been there too. I think everybody that has like any sort of active social media presence in crypto has gotten that shot before.
But so you can be, I agree with you, and I don't think that people should wall themselves off. And so that was actually one of the big motivations for us doing the Digibyte and Friends podcast. And again, thank you for coming on to that. We've just recorded the second episode for those who it's probably not out yet, but whatever. Was to educate people and to basically say, look, it's cool. Like, it doesn't matter if Ethereum, like, hit those limits with CryptoKitties. You can still learn about Ethereum, or you can learn about dApps and the likes. And you can still go over here and learn about this really interesting thing that somebody else is doing with this other kind of proof of something else mechanism, and heaps of things like that. So I think that, yes, it's great. Like, be passionate. And I think we need more people who are passionate, but we also need more compassionate people as well to understand like that's, and this is something that I've obviously struggled with myself, no doubt. You've seen some of the things that have happened on Twitter and the likes, to also understand like it's great, not everybody has to use that same tool as you do to accomplish the same thing. People are allowed to be involved with other projects. It may not be perfect for absolutely freaking everything, but neither is this one. So take the good with the bad and keep, sleep with one eye open in terms of don't be blind to its shortcomings, but don't try and gloss over them, I suppose, is probably the bigger thing. We need a lot more people to be realistic, like we were with Digibyte in terms of replacing one of our algorithms. This was a shortcoming for us. This algorithm was no longer as secure as it could be. Cool. Let's not stick our head in the sand about it. Let's go fix the damn thing.
Yeah, you got it. And, and if you dig, I'm convinced, and I know that this is true, if you dig deeply enough into each of these projects that exist, you can find something, at least one thing, if not multiple. I would say multiple on almost every occasion.
Probably multiple.
That you don't like, that's a red flag, that's not good. And ultimately, you have to, as an individual, yourself, you have to come up with a criteria for whether or not you're going to be able to look past that for this. Like, research, figure it out, because that's the only way.
Yeah, for sure. Or even better, if you come across something, say for example, you're like, right, this is a deal breaker for me. I can't I can't in good faith continue on with this. You got two options. Number one, you can up and leave. No one's forcing you to keep hold of whatever cryptocurrency it is. Or, ideally, participate in the network.
Yeah.
Encourage the network to grow. Maybe you build up a supporting service around it where, like, it doesn't just have to be that one of the code variables was not to your liking. Maybe it's something based around the way that it is marketed or advertised
managed.
or all of that sort of thing. So I would encourage people to participate rather than to spectate. Man, I'm coming up with some interesting little...
Write them down, man. Get them tatted.
But if you participate rather than spectate, you're going to have a direct involvement in making that project better. Like, that's, aside from the fact that that's just freaking cool, you will, and being able to one day talk to your kids, your grandkids or whatever, and say, I was part of the revolution, you are going to be directly responsible for fixing that problem that you had with it. You're taking control of not only your own life, but also of the way that it manifests in the project. That's cool. That's something to be commended.
I agree. And then that's the difference. Like, right now, there's a lot of controversy around Uber and Lyft and their business practices, right? The only real act of recourse that these people have is to either A, stop driving, but they need the money. They need this as their job. And then also to go to court, right? Yeah. And that takes time, years, in fact, if you're lucky enough to get it heard.
Yeah.
So they don't have the ability to go like, hey, by the way, we want to be involved in a solution that benefits both of us. Uber doesn't care. Lyft does not care what these people have to say. And it's very clear with the way that it's been managed. Yes. And I don't even know that it's all like malicious. Like, Uber realizes, Lyft realizes, I don't know if we can profit if we pay you more, period. I don't know how true that is. That's what they say. Who knows? We have no way of knowing that. But again, that goes to the fact that the point that I'm trying to make.
You would if
There's
it
no
was on the blockchain and
Right.
everybody's transactions were on a public ledger, then you'd know.
Yeah. When the code is open source and the ledger is transparent and the leadership is out there and not centrally in control of everything that happens, now you have this cool opportunity that no one's had in the past with traditional services to actually go and try and make a change, like lead a change and get a coalition of people who agree with you. You don't have to go to court to propose an improvement proposal on a decentralized network. You don't. You just push it out there and you get support, and then you go to town.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where, people may feel like they're less empowered, but they're actually more empowered to make change and fix the problems they see.
It's really interesting as well with that whole idea of consensus and things, because I was talking about this with the Navcoin guys and what's involved in making an improvement to any project. Like, that's the thing. So I've gone and submitted a proposal for a consensus upgrade for Litecoin. There is nothing preventing somebody else from coming along and finishing that off, putting that code up and available, and calling it Litecoin, and the network basically upgrading to include DigiShield. There's nothing stopping somebody from doing it. It doesn't specifically need to come from even that repo. And so that's the interesting thing about, I suppose, this whole entire space is consensus as humanity and as people and what that means and what... there's sometimes there's going to be things that you might have to go along with that you don't specifically approve of. But if most people agree that it is for the greater good, then it's an interesting philosophical question, to say the least.
Yeah, it really is. No,
it's a great time to be alive and to be in this space. That's for sure. Like, it's like you say, it's exciting. I love it, and I'm sure that's exactly why you're involved as well. Is because it's just cool, man. Like,
yeah, you're being part of something that albeit has its flaws, and there are things that we would obviously like to change.
Yep.
You can actually physically be involved in that. And it's small enough now, and the communities are small enough that you, with a small team, can make a huge impact on the future of technology that the rest of the world is going to use, right? So these decisions, I believe, are going to be just as impactful as the decisions that were made in the early days of the internet. When everything started coming in rapid fire. It went through the same growing pains, the same boom and then burst and then rebirth, and then the same cycles. I mean, you can go back and look throughout history. There's so many examples of this stuff happening. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that we are early adopters. And I think, in fact, if you tally up all of the Bitcoin addresses that have ever been used, I think it only equates for something like 0.5% of the whole world's population. Now, I know for a fact that I've contributed a good dozen to a dozen and a half addresses to that statistic. So we're literally in the 0.01 and lower percentile of people who are involved right now. Like, it's groundbreaking stuff. And we're going to go through these kind of growing pains, but hopefully we can be... Again, we don't want to gloss over what those shortcomings are and things, and we do need to grow and develop and progress and improve upon things and make this the kind of thing that the world as a whole can benefit from.
Yeah, it's got to be done as a community, a whole community, because I think we all want generally the same thing, and that's a technology that enables people to transact more freely and cheaply and more efficiently, and one that enables more human-centric applications, across the board. I think those are all common elements that people are looking for. So if we have a common goal, then I think everybody should try and reconcile different approaches to get there. That's my opinion. Cool. I know we're probably coming up on time, but the last thing I wanted to ask you is where is your head at in terms of Digibyte going into 2020, closing out 2019? What's on the board for you personally as it relates to Digibyte?
Well, I need more hours in the day. Like, so in New Zealand, we have a Maori folktale which basically talks about Maui, the guy from the Moana movie. And what he
Yep.
did was he went out one day and he slowed down the sun. And
Right.
he's a demigod, and he basically he pulled the sun and he beat it with his fish hook, and he's like, right now, you go slower through the sky so people have enough hours in the day to do what they need. We need more hours in the day. We need more hands from people who can help in any way, shape, or form. So for me, a whole lot of things are happening. Unfortunately, I still have a day job that's not crypto related, so I can't devote 24/7 to doing this. I mean, I still need to sleep as well. But
Yep.
a lot of things happening. So starting up the Digibyte and Friends podcast, wanting to educate people both on Digibyte, who are not specifically in the Digibyte sphere, but also people within the Digibyte community on what these other projects are and why they're cool. What are some other cool things that we can learn from them? What are some ways that we can benefit from this? Is there a perspective change that we need? Anything at all like that. So that's something that I'm working on. The daily Digibyte update, I've actually been going now for 2.5 months as well. Short little 2 to 5 minute video every morning, just keeping people up to date on what's actually happening with Digibyte as well. Again, although it's only 5 minutes long, by the time you throw in half an hour to an hour's worth of planning, what's going to go into it, what's going to be said and things, that takes up a lot of time as well. But focusing, I guess, for Digibyte on ways, like I mentioned earlier on, that we can break down these barriers and these walls and make Digibyte easier for people to both get onboarded with, to use, and to transact with, and to give them a reason to want it in their everyday life, I suppose, is probably a good way to sum that up.
Awesome. Yeah. So that would be a call to action. If you're watching this video right now and you are passionate about Digibyte, you're bullish on its future, you want to get involved, there are, I'm sure, plenty of ways that you can get involved making content, helping Josiah out so we can get some sleep.
Yeah.
And there are a ton of other really awesome community members that lead content generation too. So
yes.
Hop on social media and hit Josiah up if you want to learn how you could potentially get involved.
You can look me up on YouTube. I'm Josiah Spackman Digibyte. You can catch me on Twitter as well. I'm at DGB_chilling. Follow us along on the main account as well as at DigibyteCoin. Or you can even, if you're more just interested in spectating, again, like that's totally cool. There is zero obligation from anybody, and don't feel bad about that. Just follow us on Blockfolio Signal, for example, if you want to just stay up to date with the occasional bit of news. Right on. Yeah.
So you guys heard the man, you know where to find him, but of course, no pressure. So big thank you to Josiah for taking the time. Always good to connect, and we're going to try and get these types of videos in more often so we can keep everybody up to date on what's going on with Digibyte and Josiah's life. So thank you very much. Have a great one, guys. Cheers.
Thanks for having me on your show, man.
Awesome.